We're brothers from other mothers.
Best friend since dirt was brown.
I'm Tim Hott.
I'm Derek Tuttle, and this is the Best Buddy Club podcast.
Have you ever put butter on
Indeed
a
it is, episode 1.
Yeah, we talked about doing this for a long time, and now we're finally doing it, and it may or may not be good. Just see what we get.
There is a high probability that it won't be good, but we've also talked about that and recognized that, it might take a while to get a rhythm, but we're open to giving it a shot. This is probably 30 years in the making, really. Going back to how we first met, which we'll talk about, and also talking about like the inception of this idea and the logo, all of that kind of stuff.
So we'll get into, you started to say the genesis of the show. We'll talk about the name and the logo itself. I know all our friends that like wrestling will probably recognize this logo as the Bullet Club, and they'll say, oh, it's kind of passé. It was a few years ago. But Tim, I don't know if you want to tell everybody how the logo came about and why we're using it.
So friends that recognize from wrestling will clearly understand that it is a takeoff of the Bullet Club logo, which is a little trite, actually, probably to rip off by this point. But a reason why it's extra special to us is there is a Podunk karaoke bar in South Wheeling that we like to frequent, and our really good friend Joe Allen made a logo based off of the Bullet Club logo back before everyone was doing that for the Buddy Club. And since Derek and I have been best buddies, and in a way to pay tribute to Joe, we thought that it was appropriate and it fit with the concept of what we were trying to do as well.
Well, and you talked about Joe, and I think between us and everybody that we know from the Ohio Valley, we think about Joe every day. We talk about him at least once a week, if not every day. It's rare that you don't see someone say something that I wish Tuna was here, or I wish Tuna got to see that, or you and I have gotten to go to several WrestleManias and done some other really cool things that we wish he was there for. And so Tuna made this logo, and for those people who have no idea what wrestling is or follows or anything, they might recognize it from the Buddy Club from karaoke, because they still use it to this day on their screen in between songs. And so that's sort of where we came, and we kicked around a lot of ideas, because as you and I had thought about how we would do this, we talked about a lot of different ideas, and we talked about what the podcast was going to be, and we kicked around different names. And do you remember any of the ones that you had? You threw a couple out, I threw a couple out, and then we kind of settled.
I really don't. Like I once, so we batted them around for like a while, and I think part of the thing about coming up with names was related to what we were going to talk about. So like there's certain subjects that I think over the course of our friendship, that dates all the way back to elementary school, that we tend to go toward the most. But we kind of agreed that we wanted this to kind of be, nothing's off limits, but nothing is also like the standard. So if somebody expects us to talk specifically about wrestling or music or people that we knew 20 years ago, you'll probably get a little of that, but none of it is going to be, the sole focus. So we just wanted something that kind of centered around our relationship, which a lot of people have been fortunate or unfortunate enough to been a part of for the last 30 years. But one thing that I think is really interesting about our dynamic is I see people online today, and I'm guilty of this too. People tend to not agree, and because they don't agree, they can't continue to be friends. We've basically been disagreeing for 30 years.
Forever. And it's funny, I think we started we were talking about the idea of this, and I think we kept coming back to how we don't agree on stuff. Because when we came up with the idea for it, we wanted something that could be all encompassing. We didn't want to just limit it to be, we have to talk about this, or we have to talk about that. Or because a lot of times when we have conversations and we laugh about it, we're like, oh man, I wish we had recorded that, or I wish someone else had seen it. And a lot of people have talked to us over time and said, you guys are funny, you should do something like this. And we've just been super lazy. It's super lazy.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
super lazy. And we agree on a lot of things, like, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, when we were talking about how we would do this first episode, we kind of, we certainly didn't rehearse anything, but we kind of talked about how we would go through everything. And like, we go back like way back to like when we first met, because we keep saying we've been best friends for 30 years. Do you remember like how old we were, where we were, when you first knew who I was? Like, do you remember that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first. I don't know, like that it's necessarily like the first knowledge I had of you, because I was always like the type of kid that wanted to like at least understand like everybody's face and name when we were in elementary school. So I wanted to
We
be
had that
aware.
weird thing. We had that weird thing. You remember, like, we were one of the last ones that did half day kindergarten. So I don't even think we were in the same. Were
No,
you?
I don't remember you from kindergarten, and I
I had
really don't.
PM.
Who did you have? I was AM with Miss Fran.
Tom McKenzie's mom.
Yes.
Yeah, I had her. I was PM because we had the blue folders, and
Yeah.
you guys had the green
He was
folders.
blue. No, I was blue too. Green
Oh,
was Miss
so it must have
Angie on
green.
the other side. Yeah.
So yeah,
So
I could.
those are good memories. Kindergarten was a good time, but first grade I don't. First grade I do vaguely have like recollection of you getting in trouble. You and Mrs. Toothman or Miss
No,
Toothman?
no, 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 no. Miss
No,
Toothman is second grade. I had Mrs. Richardson in first grade. Who did you have?
you're right. That is second grade. So again, all of my memories are actually second grade on. So first grade I had Miss McNabb. And the highlights being, and again, we've kind of talked about this, and to protect the innocent, I won't say a name, but the highlight of that being a girl during detention pulling her pants down and peeing on the floor.
You got the phone. Yeah.
So I had detention for talking too much, and I didn't get to watch the movie, which was most likely like Disney's Robin Hood animated, which is one of my favorites of all time. But we were in the room, we had nothing to do. I don't know if it was just boredom or what else, but she pulled her pants down, she peed on the floor, and interestingly enough, that came full circle in college. She actually appeared at Wheeling Jesuit for a brief period of time, to which one of my friends coined her MCP pants, because he knew the story,
Yeah.
but he didn't know who the girl was, and then magically the girl just appeared in the cafeteria one day, and I was like, you know that story? That's that girl. And he's like, no way. But it truly was. So it's, you never know what might turn up, I guess, you know, all that time later. But my real memories of you, I do recall second grade, Miss Toothman, and I imagine that it was not easy being on that side of the partition. But I can remember you getting in trouble from that. But the thing that really sticks out to me, and we've had this conversation before too, and this tells a lot about us personality-wise too, because I think that you tend to probably be more humble than I, and I tend to, you know, I don't know even how to describe. I mean, I'm sure the other people have words for it, but you got called for Gifted and Talented, and I was in. Was it Miss Napple? Was that how you pronounce her name? Her math class.
You had the lady. You had the one who went out on maternity leave.
I had Miss
right?
Pellerin. She went out for leave because she was having a child, and Miss Leo stepped in. But I had math. I had math with Miss Napple, I think was her name, because Mrs. Naples comes later. And they called you and two others for Gifted, and I was like, how is that guy in Gifted and I'm not in Gifted? So that's a real story too. That's the first time, and we didn't have any reason really yet to interact by that point. Like, that was more of, we were in proximity to each other, but I knew that you were kind of, you know, that you like to joke and have fun, and I knew you got in trouble a lot, and I knew that you were in Gifted. But I'd say that it was really third grade. Why am I blank? Mrs. Kaiser. Mrs. Kaiser's class.
That was the first time we had the same class.
Yeah, and I think we actually like maybe were able to like sit close to each other at that time too. And probably legitimately the love of professional wrestling is what initially brought us together, but I don't specifically remember any real like significant first interaction in that way. But from that point on, And I had a spot open because the kid that I considered my best friend up to second grade had moved away. So yeah,
What
had
was that kid?
Josh Waters was his name. And I was actually thinking about that a little bit ago because I was thinking about my old daycare, and he went to my old daycare.
He was the King's Daughters.
Yeah, he went to my daycare. We were the same age, and he moved 2 houses down the street from me. And another one of those weird things that serendipitous sort of things that happens. But he ended up moving to Iowa, and I looked for him on Facebook like once or twice, and never found anything that I like solidly felt was him. But I had an opening, and it was just right place, right time.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about me getting in trouble, and I can't even remember, like, I'm in kindergarten, and it was half day. And then I remember having Mrs. Richardson in first grade, and then she had this thing with another kid in the class, and she put this strip of tape on the front of the desk. And every time that he did something or broke a rule or whatever, she would make a mark. And I'm such an idiot. I went home and I told my mom about it, and I said, "Hey mom, this kid has a strip of tape on his front of his desk. And every time he does something wrong, the teacher marks on it." And she looked at me, and my mom called the teacher that night. I had this strip of tape on my desk the next day. I was like, I'm so stupid. Like, why would I say that? And then second grade, I had Miss Toothman, and I don't remember anything from that class. Like, I don't remember anything from that year. And I remember every year, like, not completely, but fairly vividly. Like, I remember kindergarten and first grade stuff. Like, I was talking about the blue and green folders. I remember nothing about Miss Toothman's class, except I thought she was really mean. I'm an idiot, so I understand, like, looking back on it now. But the only thing I remember is there was a girl, and you work with her, and I won't say the name, but I remember we had to make Valentine's Day cards. You know who I'm talking about, right?
I'd imagine I do, yeah.
Okay. So
she was quite the looker back from the ages of.
Yeah, she was like
not to say anything derogatory about her now, but from the ages of like 2 to 10, she was
like the Kelly Kapowski of Woodsdale. Like,
yeah, perhaps, or Topanga, or whoever Winnie Cooper, whoever your girl next door is.
Absolutely, that was who she was. And so anyway, we had to do Valentine's, and we had to write like a nice thing about each person. And she and I got picked. Like, we had to write one about each other, and I was like, oh god,
that's weird. That's a weird first grade. I don't remember doing that. That's a weird first grade thing to make kids do. Second, still, yeah, okay. Yeah. But it is a weird. Let us match make these 8-year-olds and.
Yeah, I guess so. It wasn't like so much of that. It was just like, write a nice sentence about somebody, and everybody wrote like, "You're very smart. You're very helpful." Blah 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 blah. And so I don't remember what she wrote about me, but I remember that I wrote, "You're funny but weird," and I don't know why I did that. Like, I just like, if you have any of the we'll have to get them out one time and show it. Like, every class picture at Woodsdale, I had to make a face in it, and I don't know why.
Yeah, you can find those on someone's Facebook. That's probably not. We can probably mention that. Well, I don't know. I don't want people coming after her. If we like blow up someday and people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna go back and find this," like, I don't know. Whatever.
I don't care if people have the picture. I don't care if I just don't have any of those pictures.
They are on Facebook, and they have like 300 comments per. One thing that I will say, I guess, I got 2 comments, I guess. I don't remember doing a Valentine's thing, but for some reason at the end of second grade, I brought in like a little autograph book. I don't know why. And I had everybody in the class sign it, specific to Miss Pellerin's class, not everybody in second grade. And I remember being real mad because 2 guys wrote 2 cute plus 2 perfect equals 4 you. And I was like, oh.
Is that what I think it is?
Probably. It was like wretched names, but
I have 2 names in my head.
I'm still angry about that. Like, I thought about that over the weekend while I was showering, and I was like, anyways, the other thing is, like, I kind of started this off with like a comment about being shocked or feeling slighted that you were going to Gifted and I was not. But genuinely speaking, and then probably after that, for the length of the time that we do these shows, I probably won't pay you any more compliments, but you are probably one of the smartest people that I've ever known, and you've shaped a lot of my thinking through us arguing for 30 years. But even when back then, like, math counts, spelling bees, geography, like, you were always like, and I think that part of in just you talking about, like, here we go. But in terms of you talking about like or me talking about you getting in trouble a lot, I think you were genuinely that kid that like was really, really bored with what we were doing. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I just don't think that, and I especially wouldn't have imagined that that specific educator would have had you engaged. But I think it was probably difficult for most at that stage, because I think that everything came really easy to you and you just knew it, and you could go from there. But yeah,
So
that's
you were talking, you got to
the
Miss Kaiser in
genesis.
third grade.
What was
And
that?
you got to third grade, and I was just going to say, I remember we had Miss Kaiser's class together. And I remember this very vividly, that you were drawing like your own versions of like the WWF magazine covers.
I did that
And
a lot. Yeah.
you drew this like full length Randy Savage on one. I was like, man, he draws way better than I do. And then I think we just started talking about wrestling. I think we're in, I don't remember
Who the
even
best
where
artist in elementary school was, though? And I'll drop a name here.
Maria
Rhea
Fahini.
Fahini.
Maria Fahini. Yeah, you were,
She drew the best. We'd line up to have her draw Ninja Turtles in first grade.
well, Maria, I remember in the art class, she drew this like, she drew this picture of two deer. And it was like one, like a parent, I don't know if mother, father deer, whatever you want to call it, and like a baby in front of it. And we had to have been 8. I don't know.
That Max, yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. I just remember her being such a great artist. And then we knew her, and then she was with us at high school again. I was like, every time I wanted to talk to her about the deer picture she drew at Woodsdale.
It's wild how that stuff sticks with you. Like, she was that good, and like I can't remember a ton of different stuff, but I can remember pictures that she drew, like vividly. She was very talented. Yeah.
She was super good at it, and it's funny, like we just, all that stuff, I don't know if it's just because we always talk about it, but like elementary school stuck with us more than like middle or high school for whatever reason. Like those memories like are burned into my brain.
Not to get like super deep on episode 1 or whatever, but I think part of that has to do with like how shit adulthood has been for our generation. And I'm sorry for I dropped my first cuss word, I guess, but like recessions, 9/11.
Sure.
There's been a lot of, and what we're going through right now. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff. I mean, my toy collection is clearly behind me as we talk. But part of, I think, the things that make me appreciate and like reminiscing on that time more than maybe like my parents' generation would have or something is just that, like, I don't know, man, the 80s seemed like really, really cool time to be this age, or even the 70s on some level. I'm sure the 60s were pretty tumultuous, but the growing up in our time, I think makes the nostalgia pop greater.
I think there's something to that, but I think every generation has like their own thing, because you figure that in the 60s and things like that, they were thinking about nuclear war and then the Cold War and different things. So I think people have always been like afraid of something, but I think our generation over the past maybe 15, 20 years, like have had a lot of tangible things where they weren't just like living in fear, like things actually happened that weren't just like, it could happen. So maybe that's why I just think like and maybe a development thing, you know, I teach now, and I think that middle school time is I think maybe then even you revert to like Woodsdale being simpler when you're in middle school. You're like, middle school sucks.
Well, you could have got PTSD at Triadelphia Middle School.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
And what's interesting about it is, as I grow older and talk to more people about it, and people that I think had an easier time going through Triadelphia, they all feel exactly the same way about that. It makes me wonder what those teachers were doing, and like how could that school have been what it was? Because even the kids that like perceptually to me were like more popular, or on any metric were really doing better. Like you know, like the kids that were like really strong academically, whatever the thing was that you want to judge by, no one really has a good experience there. You can pull moments, and you can pull teachers, and you can pull experiences out of Triadelphia that you can look back on fondly, but no one as a whole, up to this point. And I'd be interested if people do end up giving us a listen. If anybody did have a good experience at that middle school, I would be thrilled. Like a general overall, like 90% or more thumbs up type thing for that school. I would love to hear how.
Yeah. I'm with that. I think we did something one time. We were talking about things, I think, on a Facebook thread, and I forget who it was. Somebody came in and said that their experiences were mostly positive, and I don't think that my experiences overall were all negative. I just think, I don't know, there was just this general, like I said, I teach now, and I just can't imagine anything, not anything, I shouldn't say, but I can't imagine a lot of those things going on like on a regular basis, just the way people were and the stuff that was okay. And we're in this weird like half generation because we're really not quite, I don't think of us like as quite millennials, and we're not quite, I guess, Gen
We're not
X.
Gen
Like
Xers either. Yeah.
we're not like the what's the Empire Records. We're not like that generation necessarily, and we're not really in with this one. We're like somewhere in the middle of that is like our sweet spot. Like that later '90s, early 2000s was like our coming of age. And so, but hey, if you listen to this and you have positive experiences and you want to interact about that, Woodsdale, Triadelphia Park, let us know. It's a conversation I'm always willing to have because we talk so much about it. It's so crazy. So anyway, we were talking before about how we conceptually got to this point, and our arguments and our talking have developed our memory. And like, speaking of like sharing memories, like, so the Pop-Tart thing. So I know. So I was at the store one day and just randomly like looked, and I was lamenting like, why did strawberry Pop-Tarts become the most popular Pop-Tarts? Because they're just the ones that are there all the time. Because I remember when I was younger, the cherry Pop-Tarts were always there. The strawberry frosting was different. The raspberry frosting was different. It was pink. It's just like what's on the raspberry ones now used to be on the strawberry ones when I was little. At least that's how I remember it. The raspberry ones for sure had this like pink frosting because my grandma bought me all the time and they were awesome. And the raspberry ones are still good. But anyway, I was lamenting like, why is strawberry the most popular Pop-Tart? And then you jumped in.
Like this has been an interesting thing because I just recently had a birthday, and half of my birthday wishes on Facebook, which unfortunately I still haven't gotten around to thanking people for, but so thank you if you wish me happy birthday. But half of them were Pop-Tart related, and which is just such an interesting thing because I would guess that from the time that I left high school, and even at least from the time that I left like my parents' house up until I moved into this apartment, which was only about 6 or 7 months ago, I don't remember buying Pop-Tarts at all. I ate it when I was younger. I was going through the store here, and I was like, "Oh, Pop-Tarts! I haven't had those in a while," and just so happened to buy them. But like now, it's like such an integral thing that it's in my birthday wishes. But the level of conviction that I truly have about Pop-Tarts could be like investigated, and but essentially the way that I preferred, and I've had frosted Pop-Tarts, and I've had chocolate Pop-Tarts, and I've had like all sorts of different variations, and I've even had the off-brand toaster treat a time or two, and I've had toaster strudels, which I never liked. So when people come in with that part of the argument, they need to get the out of here. But my preferred way of eating Pop-Tarts is the unfrosted version. I don't necessarily truly think that you're not a grown-up if you don't eat the unfrosted ones, but I just thought it was a good narrative. So essentially you posted your post. I don't remember, was it a video about how cherry Pop-Tarts were superior?
I don't remember. It probably was.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's funny is I don't remember the full genesis of this either.
I remember it. I was sitting on the back porch and I did a video and I just shaved, which is like, that's how I remember it, because I haven't shaved since. I got bored with my.
But I think that was the second thing. I think like the where you don't have a beard is like your second thing about this. I think you posted something initially just saying that cherry. How did strawberry win when cherry's clearly superior? And I don't know if that was a video or a post, but I just so happened to have unfrosted strawberry in my cabinet, so I just took a picture of it and sent it back. And so that's when it started to escalate, and that's when it hit the porch.
Well, the thing is about the unfrosted strawberry is like, when I was younger, and I always talk about Pop-Tarts like it was so different, but things were different. Like Gatorade was different and Pop-Tarts were different. And so anyway, when I was younger, if you got Pop Tarts and you were unfrosted ones, they had more filling in them. So that was like kind of the draw of it, is like the unfrosted ones had more filling because I guess to compensate for the no frosting. And a lot of the flavors were like different. The frosting was different, or stuff was different about them. It just was a different time. And so like I was like, I cannot believe it. I don't. And thing is, I'm so upset about strawberry being number one. Like I'm legitimately upset about it because it's everywhere. And even Carrie goes, oh, she goes, yeah, the frosted strawberry ones are the best ones. Like matter of factly to me. And I'm like, how? I feel like it's like a Mandela effect for me. Like, how did this happen? Like, when did I miss this memo that frosted strawberry was the best ones? And I don't like them. I mean, if you like them, cool.
So the argument started strawberry versus cherry.
Yeah.
And your friend Dan chimed in, complete with the actor who played in Gremlins and his take on the best Pop-Tart. So that was pretty wild. And like when he specifically singled us, like Tim and Derek, the best like that was pretty wild. But it started strawberry versus cherry and blossomed into my mom saying that, you know, unfrosted blueberry is the best. And then like, and everybody coming in with like cinnamon and like different things that had nothing to do with like our argument. But then our argument turned because I kind of backed off of flavor as my argument and really targeted the frosting.
And then it's funny, the one day I was like, I think we were talking about the frosting and stuff, and you said the frosting is for children. And then I go, yeah, the taste says the taste of someone who collects He-Man toys. And like, I was like, oh no, I hit him with a low blow. And then you can go ahead and say what you said if you want to.
I don't remember. I know I gave you, I tried to give you a guilt trip about it, but yeah. I wasn't really bothered. But
yeah, I was like, oh, it's not really.
I just wanted to shut it down because it was like a really good like argument for what, like I was like, how am I going to be the credible candidate based on being an adult when all of my life centers around being, you know, a grown man child essentially.
I wonder, like, as I'm thinking about this, I had two things that I wanted to say. You were talking about off-brand Pop-Tarts. I just want to speak this in for my mom. My mom, so Heinz ketchup is like my number one ketchup, of course. If you have any taste of ketchup, don't pick Hunt's or I'll punch you, Tim. So Heinz ketchup is.
I'm not a Hunt's guy. Maybe I wish I was wearing a Hunt's t-shirt like right underneath here.
But you would wait for it if we weren't talking. You'd be like, oh, I'm gonna.
I don't have any Hunt's ketchup in. I have Heinz, so I can't come out and create the same scenario.
So here's the thing. My mom a few years ago admits that she would buy, she'd get the one thing of Heinz, okay? And then when that was done, she would buy generic Kroger ketchup and squeeze it into the Heinz bottle. Like, have you heard this?
Like restaurants do this, but I don't ever heard of a mother doing it.
Yeah, like, so I admitted all the things to my mom. We're like, all right, I guess we're just sharing stuff now. I'm going to tell you about some stuff you had no idea about.
That's an interesting part of adulthood, is when you get to that level with your parents where you're saying, all right, here's everything I never told you before. But I think that everybody crosses that threshold at some point.
Here's the stuff I got away with. So anyway, the second thing I was thinking about when we were talking is like, I think the Pop-Tart thing and being so popular and everybody having a connection to it, it kind of circles back to all the stuff we've been talking about. And that, like, even if you don't know it, you have this connection to like nostalgia in your childhood. So like the Pop-Tart thing for most people probably aren't regularly eating Pop-Tarts. I caught a sweet 3 for $5 sale at Publix, so I have Pop-Tarts right now, but and we're stuck in the house. So, but yeah, I caught that sale and got Pop-Tarts. But most people, I think, are connected to it because it's like a comfort food. And I think you and I, like, the things we're going to talk about, maybe if we argue, or, you know, if you want to be hashtag team unfrosted strawberry or hashtag team frosted cherry, whatever you want to do. I think people are like comforted by those sort of things and those memories from childhood, and we just pick like the certain ones, and that's what we gravitate to. And sometimes if you don't talk about it, you don't realize, oh man, I had a favorite Pop-Tart, or oh man, I had a favorite like cartoon, or I mean, cartoon's a little more obvious, but they're just like certain things you see like a commercial for, like a toy or something like that. And I think the Pop-Tart thing for a lot of people was like, oh man, just like that, I don't know, that comfort food of.
It was a simple thing at a time where a lot of people were probably feeling like a lot of stress and things. But my thing about being team unfrosted strawberry is I recognize that it's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Because frosted's probably more common in place. But what annoys me is people who have never had it chime in on the argument. Because if you haven't tried an unfrosted, so pick whatever flavor, cherry, blueberry, whatever. If you've not put butter on a Pop-Tart, you have no concept of how delicious that it is. So to throw in my face that frosted is clearly better without having tried it is blasphemy.
Well, and I will say this right now in front of the world as you record this, that as part of my 3 for 5, I got one of my 3 favorites. I got raspberry, cherry, and unfrosted strawberry.
Yeah, and I knew how I felt about that when you told me the first time.
Well, what did you feel?
That you only did it so that you could eat it and then say how bad it was.
Well, okay, let's be fair. Between the two of us, who is the one who never takes recommendations from the other one about things being good ever? It's not me. It's not me. I don't do stuff like when I tell you that TNA was good this, you're like, no, I would never do that. I would never.
Obviously, that's not true. And you've been on a real kick to get me to watch either Westworld or something else recently.
Did I say The Last Dance? Westworld was for sure it.
Yeah, I don't know. You did say something about The Last Dance, and I have that DVR'd anyway because I loved the 1990 Chicago Bulls, and that was like the only time that I was ever in love with basketball as a sport. But so I am looking forward to watching that. But I don't know, man. Westworld wasn't what I wanted it to be, so.
Oh, God.
Cameos. This will be most people's favorite part of this if they've lasted that long. Oh man, then there was a dog.
Yeah. And look, Gary's trying to get him out discreetly, and I didn't put the big ziti in the oven that I was supposed to. No, leave it in. It's good. You know, they can't see.
No, we're not editing this.
Okay, I'm good. But anyway, so I think as much as we had worried about being able to fill time, like I looked down and I'm like, we're already like we've blown past a half hour. I think.
I don't know exactly what time we started. We didn't start directly at the point that we were like set the meeting for. We got settled a little bit, but I think we're probably at about that time.
Yeah, and I think that we would appreciate it if you see this. You know, all the things we're going to try to get up on YouTube, on Podbean, lots of different places. If you could please, it's cliche, but if you could like it, subscribe, review it. We can start doing a lot more things with YouTube if we get a certain number of subscribers. If you just tell someone about it, it's just a way for to do something fun with the stupid things that we talk about all the time. And hey, if you want to get in on conversations, you know how to get a hold of us on social media. You know, he's Tim Hahn. I'm Derek Tuttle, of course. We're going to get some stuff going for the show. We're talking about doing Patreon. We're talking about doing all sorts of things to make this, you know, make this more enjoyable, give us more time to work on it, hopefully branch out the Best Buddy Club into some other things, and just make it fun. You know, we're all bored in the house, so we're trying to do something to pass time. And so I'll give the final thoughts to Tim.
He doesn't have any. I really don't. If you're not an essential man, grow your beard. And in the meantime, we'll try to grow our audience. And if you have any subjects that you'd like us to cover, we'd be happy to talk about them. Right now, you are listening to the Best Buddy Club podcast. I'm Derek Tuttle. That's Tim Hahn. We have two strong jawlines. We're two great dudes. Thank you for I snuck it in. Thank you for joining us this week on the Best Buddy Club podcast. We hope to see you next week and every week thereafter. Thanks a lot.